Welcome everyone to Skyline Community Church Virtual and Reality. Our reading for today comes from the lectionary, and it's a continuation in the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, the Hebrew Scriptures. It's a book about origins, about beginnings, and it opens with the beginnings of the world. And in today's readings, it's the beginnings of the story of a family, a people, a nation, the patriarchs. It's a mythic story of hope against hope, to create a home and a family and a new life and a new nation through the transformation of two people, Abram and Sarai, the high father and the princess, who become Abraham and Sarah, father and mother of multitudes. Hear these words from the book of Genesis, chapter 18, verses 1 through 15, from Eugene Peterson's translation, The Message. God appeared to Abraham at the oaks of Mamre, where he was sitting at the entrance of his tent. It was the hottest part of the day. He looked up and he saw 3 men standing. He ran from his tent to greet them, and he bowed before them. And he said, "Master, if it please you, stop for a while with your servant. I'll get some water so you can wash your feet. Rest under the tree. I'll get some food to refresh you on your way, since your travels have brought you across my path." And they said, "Certainly, go ahead." Abraham hurried to the tent to Sarah. He said, "Hurry, get 3 cups of the best flour, knead it, and make bread." And then Abraham ran to the cattle pen, picked out a nice plump calf, and gave it to the servant, who lost no time in getting it ready. Then he got curds and milk, brought them with the calf that had been roasted, set the meal before the men, and stood there under the tree while they ate. The men said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" He said, "In the tent." And one of them said, "I'm coming back about this time next year. And when I arrive, your wife Sarah will have a son." Now Sarah was listening at the tent opening, just behind the man. Abraham and Sarah were old by this time, very old. Sarah was far past the age of having babies. Sarah laughed within herself. An old woman like me get pregnant with this old man of a husband? God said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh, saying, 'Me have a baby, an old woman like me?' Is anything too hard for God? I'll be back about this time next year, and Sarah will have a baby." But Sarah lied because she was afraid, and she said, "I didn't laugh." But God said, "Yes, you did. You laughed." So ends our reading. Let us meditate on these words in the sanctuary of our hearts and minds. Please pray with me. Come, Holy Spirit, fill our hearts, kindle us in the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, that we may all be renewed, and you shall renew the face of the earth. Amen. In her fabulous book, The Beginning of Desire, Aviva Gottlieb Zornberg, a Hebrew scholar and author, begins the unpacking of this text from Genesis with the words, "Sarah cried." Sarah cried, not Sarah laughed. Dr. Thornburg reminds us when we meet Sarah in her advanced age, this old, barren matriarch of the faith, she surely must have cried more often than she laughed. 7 verses back, Genesis traces this history that leads us to Abraham and Sarah, noting it was marked by absence and loss, by desire and disappointment. Henry Bergson, recipient of the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1927, in his article, The Idea of Nothing, stated it this way, saying that every human action has as its starting point a dissatisfaction, a feeling of absence. And this is true for Abraham and Sarah. What is absent in their lives is a child, any child. But they'd mostly hoped for a son, and everything they tried hadn't worked. And now they are past the point of hoping. There's an absence. There's a desire for something that is not there. And it is because of this absence, because of this thing that is missing, this desire that Abraham and Sarah have, that they are led out into the wilderness. In Genesis chapter 12, we're told, now the Lord had said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great so that you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you. Whoever curses you, I will curse. And in you, all people on earth will be blessed. So Abram went, as the Lord had told him. This is a journey. This is a human action. In the words of Bergson, a journey that begins in dissatisfaction, in disappointment, in lack. You see, what leads Abraham and Sarah out into the wilderness to forsake everything they know, everything that's comfortable, their community, their land, their position, their family, their home, their possessions, everything that's familiar, they leave behind because God has said, I am going to make a great family of you. And this is what they want most. They want to be a great family. And to this point, it has been nothing but sorrow and loss. It's what they want more than anything. And it is the hope from God that there is a better future possible. God promises, I will be with you on the journey. And that gives them the strength to begin. And did you notice they leave without any specific idea of where they are going? A land that I will show you. Who would go on a vacation like that? Get in the bus. We'll tell you later where you're going. Could be someplace great, or you could find yourselves in some parts of Pawtucket, Rhode Island, where I was born. But it allows them, it frees them to move out into the unknown, that promise, I will be with you, to see where they will end up. And they're willing to wander to reach a better place. I think it's interesting to note that the word travel and the word travail are connected. To wander, to suffer, to be in distress, to travel and to travail, like a poor wayfaring stranger, or to travel 500 miles. I think all great adventures begin this way. Our willingness to say yes to the unknown and leave behind everything you know, head out into an undiscovered future, as did our fathers and our mothers and our ancestors, those both within our families and as a nation. And I know it's complicated. Speaking of fathers, today is Father's Day, and it's tricky because I think deep down within each one of us, there is such a vast human longing for the very deepest forms of guidance and protection and shaping and the casting of a better future ahead of us, which we associate with the ideal father. That deep feeling, that deep need for that presence, that longing for that presence, and the absence of that presence, the missing of that presence as a family and as a nation, especially now. And so today I lift up the role and the importance of fathers, and at the same time, I want to honor and celebrate all those who have made this journey and all those who have filled this deep human need in others. A good father, a good parent will tell you that if you have more than one child, the trick is not to always give equal attention, but the right attention to each child. And sometimes it's not a game of one-on-one. Sometimes it's a zone game. Sometimes you have to double team one player. Sometimes there's one child or one group that needs more support, more guidance, more focus, or in the case of African American men in this country, needs more protection. So the sermon, okay, is kind of wandering at this point. It's traveling, it's in travail, just like Abraham and Sarah. But it has to wander. It has to respond to what's happening in our lives now, what's fresh and new, what we're becoming more conscious of, especially those of us who are white in this country. The slow, brutal execution of George Floyd has ignited an international outrage. White people, myself included, are becoming more conscious of what Black people have known for centuries about the deep, violent, pervasive, structural, systemic racism within this country. And for me, it brings back memories of Oscar Grant, 22-year-old Black man shot and killed by a police officer on New Year's Day, 2003, right here at the Fruitvale station. Grant's death over 10 years ago was one of the first to be caught on the cell phone video cameras. His killing also sparked international outrage over police shootings, especially those involving unarmed Black men at the hands of white police officers. But did you know that there's more to this story? In a report that was released 10 years after Oscar Grant's killing, more was revealed. It was released May 2019, last year. An internal investigation from BART was obtained and released to the public under California's new police transparency law, SB 1421. The report, though heavily redacted, reveals a much more complete picture of that traumatic night. And I'd like to share some highlights from this report. First of all, Grant's shooter, Officer Johannes Messerly, had a history of aggression. He was relatively new to the force, and in the prior year, 2008, he had used force 6 times. What if he had been disciplined? Might this tragedy, this killing, have been avoided? Officer Messerly was not available to be interviewed for the BART investigation. The report says The conclusion can be made from a close viewing of the enhanced video from witnesses that night that Officer Messerly was intending to pull his firearm, not his taser. The video revealed that Messerly repeatedly reached for his gun and on the final occasion can be seen looking back at the handle of his gun holster to watch the gun come out. And just prior to the shooting, the unarmed 22-year-old Grant was face down on the station platform as a second officer, Anthony Peroni, was kneeling on Grant's neck and head, while Grant had both hands behind him in a handcuffed position, the report says. Officer Messerly then fired a single round into Grant's back. Officer Messerly was sentenced for 2 years for involuntary manslaughter. He served 11 months and was released. But there's more to the story, to this report that was released 10 years after this killing. That second police officer, Anthony Peroni, the one kneeling on Grant's neck, according to the report, Peroni, and I quote, started a cascade of events that ultimately led to the shooting. According to the report, Officer Peroni, responding to reports about fights on that train that night, ordered Grant off the train in an aggressive manner while shouting profanities, and then he forced him to sit on the ground. Now, Officer Peroni claimed that Grant attacked him, saying he tried to punch me, he started kneeing me, and then he kicked me, and that's when I put a forearm to the upper region of the body. But the report noted that the video from eyewitnesses reveals a very different story. Peroni, in the video, approached Grant, grabbed a hold of him, and pushed him against the wall. And then he appears to have struck him one time on the head or the facial area. There was no evidence that Grant kneed Peroni in the groin, as the officer had claimed. Peroni claimed he felt as if he was fighting for his life with Grant. But investigators wrote that none of this appears to have happened during the video. In the video, Peroni kneed Grant in the face, but did not report this. And furthermore, an autopsy revealed that Grant suffered a hemorrhage. Peroni was fired after this investigation was finalized. Aren't you sick and tired of this sermon? I'm so sick and tired of institutionalized systemic racism. I'm so sick of gun violence. I'm so sick of gross inequality. I'm so sick and tired of the absence of justice in this country and the inaction of Congress. We're stuck, aren't we? We are stuck as a country. And as the death toll mounts from the pandemic of COVID-19 and COVID-16-19, what are we going to do? What will move us to act? What will get us to move? What will get us to get Congress to act? What will move us to use our substantial resources as a country to save people who are in danger? I'm remembering what Mr. Bergson said, human actions begin with dissatisfaction, with the absence of something, with a desire for something that is not present. And suddenly the light comes on. There is an absence in this country of justice, of equality, of unity, of prosperity. There is an absence of the life that Jesus calls us to. He says, I come to bring you life and bring it abundantly. And we hear from the prophets, what does God require of you but to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God? We know what's missing. We just don't know how to get there. So, what advice does today's story have for us, for today, for now, for these times? Well, you notice Abraham doesn't stand there and negotiate with God, saying, so where am I going? What's it going to look like, God? Will I have the same flocks, the same tents, the same friends, the same everything that makes me so happy and content right now? Abraham wanted something. Sarah wanted something so badly. And they were so sick and tired of crying and so sick and tired of their mourning that they were willing and able to give up their comfort, to give up what was known, and to move forward to a land that they could not see. Is there a land better than this one? Is there a place in history, a time we can imagine, where everyone is safe, where everyone is treated fairly, where everyone has equal protection under the law? If you're hungry for that, if you imagine that that is a place where everyone in this country could live, then let's go, shall we? It's time to leave what's comfortable, what's known and familiar, because the current situation is a blessing to some and it's killing others. It's time for us to go. I think we've rearranged the furniture as much as we can. We've tried to fix it in bits and pieces. It's not working. It's time to step into the unknown and to believe and to trust that God is going to show us a way. We've just got to move. Are we content with Sarah crying? Are we content with Rachel weeping over her children because they are no more? Are we content with the faces of people we see whose sons and daughters have been killed because of the color of their skin? It's not what I want. I can't take the tears anymore. It's not what I want. I'm looking for laughter. And I believe the God that I love is our partner in this journey that is leading us to a better place. And it's not going to be easy. It will surely involve both travel and travail, unpacking the myths, the dreams we've been sold, and the nightmare that we've been living with as a country. The time is now for nice white people to stop pretending that we don't know that this country is racist. The time is now to step up and get in the game, because it's not just the work of Gen Z to work together, starting right here in Oakland. The angels remind us, fear not. God has the power to turn our weeping into laughing and our fear into fellowship, our violence into peace, our division into unity, and our brutal, savage inequality into amazing grace for all. I don't want to live here anymore. I am dissatisfied, and I desire better. Let us move. Amen.
Is that we encourage each other to sing. So imagine that you're walking on a long, long journey, perhaps walking through a desert, perhaps walking with Abraham and his family and all his flocks and herds, not knowing exactly where the journey is going to take you. And as you walk, you're kind of singing to yourself this song. And if you know it, then sing it in your heart along with us. If you miss the train I'm on, you will know that I am gone. You can hear the whistle blow 100 miles, 100 miles, 100 miles, 100 miles, 100 miles. You can hear the whistle blow. 100 miles.
Lord, I'm one. Lord, I'm two. Lord, I'm three. Lord, I'm four. Lord, I'm 500 miles away from home. Away from home, away from home, away from home, away from home. Lord, I'm 500 miles away from home.
Not a shirt on my back, not a penny to my name. Lord, I can't go back home this own way, this own way, this own way, this own way, this own way. Lord, I can't go back home this own way.
So if you miss the train I'm on, you will know that I am gone. You can hear the whistle blow.